At the end of the book of 2 Kings, we saw the fall of Jerusalem. The people of Judah were taken into captivity by Babylon, and the once glorious kingdom of David was left in ruins. The temple was destroyed, the kings were dethroned, and the people were scattered. This marked the end of a painful chapter in Israel's history. But while 2 Kings closed with sorrow, 1 Chronicles opens with purpose. The chronicler, likely writing during or after the exile, begins by reminding the people of their roots, not with sorrow, but with identity. Before the temple, before the kingdom, before the exile, there was a lineage, a family, a story. And it begins with Adam. The book begins with one name, a name that stands as the origin of mankind. Adam, the first man created by God. From Adam came Seth, the son who was given after Abel was killed. Seth became the next bearer of the human story. From him came Enosh, and with Enosh, the story moved forward. Then came Kenan, and after him, Mahalalel. Mahalalel had Jared, and Jared became the father of Enoch. Enoch walked so closely with God that he did not die like other men. He was taken by God. From Enoch came Methuselah, the man who lived the longest on earth. Then came Lamech, and from Lamech came Noah. Each name in this list carries the weight of generations, of lifetimes passed on, of stories lived, even though those stories are not fully told here. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These 3 sons gave rise to the nations that would spread across the earth after the great flood. From Japheth came Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Gomer's sons were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. Javan's sons were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. These were the roots of the peoples who would live in the distant isles and coasts, in places far from Israel, yet all a part of the human family. From Ham came Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Cush had Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Raama, and Sabteka. Rama had Sheba and Dedan. From Cush also came Nimrod, the man who became a mighty warrior on earth. Mizraim's descendants included the Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, and Caphtorim. From Casluhim came the Philistines. From Canaan came Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, followed by the Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. These names formed the foundation of many ancient nations and cities. From Shem came Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Aram's sons were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born 2 sons, Peleg, in whose days the earth was divided, and Joktan. Joktan fathered Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. These were the sons of Joktan. All these names reveal that the earth was filled with people, tribes, and nations, all coming from the sons of Noah. Then the record narrows its focus. From Shem's line came another list of names: Shem, Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor, Terah, and Abram. This Abram is the same man whom God would later name Abraham. He is not just a man in the line of names. He becomes the father of a chosen people. The line continues with Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael. The sons of Ishmael are recorded next, 12 sons in total. These sons are Nebaioth, the firstborn, then Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These are the names of Ishmael's sons, each becoming a nation of their own. Abraham also had sons by Keturah, his concubine. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Jokshan had Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, and Leumim. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanach, Abida, and Eldah. These were the sons of Keturah, descendants of Abraham, though not through the line of promise. Abraham's son Isaac had two sons, Esau and Israel. The sons of Esau were Eliphaz, Reuel, Jush, Jalam, and Korah. Eliphaz had Teman, Omar, Zephi, Gatam, Kenaz, and by Timnah he also had Amalek. Reuel had Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. The leaders who came from Esau's family are listed. These chiefs include Timnah, Alva, Jetheth, Oholibama, Elah, Pinon, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Iram. These were the chiefs of Edom. Then the kings who ruled in Edom before Israel had kings are named. Bela son of Beor was king in Edom, and his city was Dinhaba. When Bela died, Jobab son of Zerah from Bozrah became king. When Jobab died, Husham from the land of the Temanites ruled. When Husham died, Hadad son of Bedad became king. He defeated Midian in the country of Moab, and his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah from Masrekah became king. After Samlah came Shaul from Rehoboth on the river. Then Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, ruled. When he died, Hadad ruled, and his city was Pai. His wife's name was Mehetabel, daughter of Matred, daughter of Mezahab. These names end the chapter with the record of rulers from Edom. These are the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. But now the chronicler focuses deeply on the tribe of Judah. The reason becomes clear. Judah is the tribe through which the kings came, especially David, the central figure of Israel's royal history. Judah had 3 sons by the daughter of Shua, a Canaanite woman, Onan, and Shelah. Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, and the Lord put him to death. Judah then had twin sons, Perez and Zerah, by Tamar, his daughter-in-law. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Zerah were Zimri, Ethan, Heman, Calcol, and Dara, 5 in total. Carmi, from the line of Zerah, had a son named Achar, who broke faith by stealing what had been set apart for destruction. Because of this sin, trouble came upon Israel. The son of Ethan was Azariah. The sons of Hezron, born to him, were Jerahmeel, Ram, and Caleb. Ram became the father of Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon, a leader of the people of Judah. Nahshon was the father of Salma. Salma fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. Jesse had 7 sons. His firstborn was Eliab, then Abinadab, then Shemaiah, followed by Nethanel, Radai, Ozem, and the 7th was David. David also had sisters, Zeruiah and Abigail. Zeruiah had 3 sons, Abishai, Joab, and Asahel. Abigail bore Amasa, whose father was Jether the Ishmaelite. Caleb, son of Hezron, had children by Azubah, his wife, and by Jerioth. Her sons were Jesher, Shobab, and Arden. When Azubah died, Caleb married Ephrath, who gave birth to Hur. Hur became the father of Uri, and Uri the father of Bezalel, the man who crafted the tabernacle's sacred objects. Later, Hezron took the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead, as his wife when he was 60 years old. She bore him Segub. Segub fathered Jair, who held 23 cities in Gilead. But Geshur and Aram took towns from them, Kenath and 60 surrounding villages. All these belonged to the descendants of Machir, father of Gilead. After Hezron died in Caleb Ephrathah, Abijah, his wife, bore him Ashur, the father of Tekoa. Then the list continues with the family of Jerahmeel, Hezron's firstborn. His sons were Ram, Bunah, Oren, Ozem, and Ahijah. Ram had a son named Maaz, who had sons named Jamin, Eker, and Shema. Shema's son was Nadab, and Nadab's sons were Seled and Apim. Seled died without children. Apim had Ishi. Ishi had Sheshan, and Sheshan had Alai. These names follow each generation as a precious line recorded for the sake of memory. More descendants of Caleb are listed. Shobal, the father of Kiriath Jearim. From him came the families of Haroeh, half of the Manahathites. His relatives included the Ithrites, Puthites, Shumathites, and Mishrates. From these came the Zorathites and Eshtaolites. The sons of Salma were Bethlehem, the Netophathites, Atroth, Beth Joab, the half of the Manahathites, and the Zorites. From them came the scribes living at Jabez, Tirath, Shemayath, Sukkath. These were the Kenites who came from Hamath, the father of the house of Rechab. The focus now turns entirely to the royal family, the family of King David. Every name listed in this chapter carries weight. These are not random generations, but the lineage through which the promise of kingship was carried in Israel. The chapter opens by naming the sons born to David during his reign in Hebron, before he took Jerusalem. David's first son was Amnon, and his mother was Ahinoam of Jezreel. Amnon was the firstborn. Next came Daniel, born by Abigail of Carmel. He was the second son. The third son was Absalom, whose mother was Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. Then came the fourth son, Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith. The fifth was Shephatiah, born by Abital, and the sixth was Ithrim, whose mother was Eglah, another of David's wives. These 6 sons were all born to David while he lived in Hebron during the first 7 years of his reign before he moved to rule from Jerusalem. Each child had a different mother, and each name represented a future possibility, a thread of the royal house. Yet as history would later reveal, many of these sons would face terrible consequences, some for their own sins, others as part of the sorrowful story of David's house. But at this point in the text, each son is simply honored as a child of the king. After these 6 sons of Hebron, the account moves on to the sons born to David in Jerusalem. The first named is Shemaiah, also known in other places as Shammua. Then Shobab, followed by Nathan, and then Solomon. These 4 sons were all born to David by Bathshua, the daughter of Ammiel. This woman is known elsewhere as Bathsheba, the one whom David had taken after her husband Uriah died. But here she is honored by her proper name and lineage, and among her sons, Solomon would rise as the next king and the builder of the temple. Besides these, David had more sons. The text goes on to name Ibhar, Elishama, Eliphalet, Noga, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama again, then Eliada, and Eliphalet a second time. The repetition of names like Elishama and Eliphalet suggests that some of the children may have died young and others were named in their place, a common practice in ancient times. In total, there were 9 sons listed here from David's time in Jerusalem, apart from the first 4 by Bathshua. Altogether, David had 19 sons who are named in this chapter. These were only the sons born to him through his official wives. But the chronicler adds that David also had other sons by concubines, though their names are not recorded here. He also had a daughter named Tamar, whose tragic story is remembered, though she is the only daughter mentioned by name. From here, the focus shifts from David's children to the line of royal descendants who came after Solomon, his chosen heir. This is the line of kings that would rule in Jerusalem. Solomon's son was Rehoboam. Rehoboam's son was Abijah, also called Abijam. Abijah fathered Asa, and Asa's son was Jehoshaphat. From Jehoshaphat came Jehoram, and from him came Ahaziah. Ahaziah's son was Joash, who was rescued as a child when his family was killed. Joash's son was Amaziah, and Amaziah became the father of Azariah, who is also called Uzziah in some records. From Azariah came Jotham, then Ahaz, and then Hezekiah, the king known for his great reforms and prayers to God. Hezekiah's son was Manasseh, who reigned for many years and at first led the nation into idolatry, but later repented. His son was Ammon, and Ammon's son was Josiah, one of the most faithful kings of Judah, who rediscovered the book of the law. Josiah had 4 sons. The first was Johanan, the second was Jehoiakim, the third was Zedekiah, and the fourth was Shallum. Although Zedekiah was the last to reign, Jehoiakim was also significant, for his line continued even into the days of exile. Jehoiakim had a son named Jeconiah, also called Jehoiachin, who was taken into captivity by the king of Babylon. Jeconiah's son was Shealtiel. This marked the beginning of the exilic royal line. Even though they were in captivity, the royal bloodline was still preserved. Shealtiel became the father of Pedaiah, and Pedaiah's sons included Zerubbabel and Shimei. Zerubbabel, though never a king, was a governor and leader who played a central role in rebuilding the temple after the return from Babylon. Zerubbabel had 7 sons: Meshullam, Hananiah, Hashubah, Ohel, Berechiah, Hasadiah, and Jushab-Hesed. These names carried the hopes of a new beginning. Hananiah, the son of Zerubbabel, had 2 sons named Pelatiah and Jeshiah. Then the family line continued through the sons of Raphiah, Arnan, Obadiah, and Shechaniah. These descendants carried the name and honor of David's house, even though the throne was gone and the exile was real. Shechaniah had a son named Shemaiah, and Shemaiah had 6 sons: Hattush, Igial, Bariah, Neariah, and Shaphat. Neariah had 3 sons: Elioenai, Hezekiah, and Azrikam. Then Elioenai had 7 sons: Hodaviah, Eliashib, Peliah, Akub, Johanan, Deliah, and Anani. Each of these names closes the chapter, not with the glory of a king seated on a throne, but with the quiet continuation of a royal family, still alive, still remembered, holding the promise that one day a greater king would come from David's line. The chronicler continues with the descendants of Judah, the tribe that produced kings, warriors, craftsmen, and leaders in Israel. Though some names may seem like mere genealogies, they represent bloodlines that built towns, raised families, and shaped the landscape of the promised land. These were people who carried the identity and legacy of God's chosen people. The chapter begins with the sons of Judah: Perez, Hezron, Carmi, Hur, and Shobal. These were not just random individuals. Each of them gave rise to large families and regions. Reiah, son of Shobal, became the father of Jahath, and Jahath fathered Ahumai and Lahad. These were the families of the Zorathites, a group rooted in the town of Zorah. Next is Etam's family. Etam's sons were Jezreel, Ishma, and Idbash. They also had a sister named Hazelelponi. That name may be unfamiliar, but her inclusion as a sister shows her importance in the family line, perhaps because of her role or story that was known at the time. Penuel, another descendant, became the father of Gedor, and Ezer was the father of Husha. These two men came from the family line of Hur, who was the firstborn of Ephrathah and the father of Bethlehem, a place that would later become the birthplace of David and even the Messiah. Asher, the father of Tekoa, had two wives, Helah and Naarah. Naarah gave him 4 sons, Ahuzam, Hepher, Temeni, and Hahashtari. These sons formed their own family lines. Then came the children from his other wife, Helah. Her sons were Zereth, Zohar, and Ethnan. Another son of Judah, Koz, became the father of Anub, Zobabah, and the families of Aharhel, the son of Haram. These names, though not widely known today, were well known in their time as founders of clans and builders of heritage. Then appears a man named Jabez, whose name stands out like a strong flame in the middle of the genealogy. Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. His mother gave him the name Jabez, saying, "Because I gave birth to him in pain." But Jabez did not allow his name to define his future. He called out to the God of Israel, and he prayed a bold and honest prayer. He said, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me, and keep me from evil, so that I may not cause pain." This prayer was not long or complex. It was heartfelt. It was bold. It asked for blessing, for expansion, for God's hand, and for protection from harm. And the scripture says God granted him what he requested. In the middle of the genealogies, this short story shows how one man with a heavy name turned to God and received favor. The record continues. Caleb, the brother of Shuha, fathered Mehir, who was the father of Eshton. Eshton became the father of Beth-Rapha, Paseah, and Tehinnah, the father of Ir-Nahash. These were the men of Rekah, another group of builders and settlers. The sons of Kenaz were Othniel and Sariah. Othniel was a well-known judge in Israel's history. Othniel had a son named Hathath. Then Meonothai fathered Ophrah, and Sariah fathered Joab, the ancestor of those who lived in the valley of the craftsmen, because they were skilled in working with their hands, building, crafting, shaping materials with skill and wisdom. The sons of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, were Eru, Elah, and Nam. Elah's son was Kenaz. These men were part of a strong and faithful family. Caleb himself was a man of great faith who stood with Joshua and believed in God's promise when others feared. Jehalalel's sons were Ziph, Ziphah, Tiria, and Azarel. Then the sons of Ezra were Jether, Mered, Epher, and Jalon. One of these men married the daughter of Pharaoh, and she gave birth to Miriam, Shammai, and Ishbah, the father of Eshtemoa. Another wife of Mered gave birth to Jekuthiel, the father of Gedor, and Heber, the father of Soko. The sons of Hodiah's wife, the sister of Naham, were the fathers of Kala the Garmite, and Eshtemoa the Maacathite. Then we read of the sons of Shimon, Amnon, Rinnah, Ben-Hanan, and Telon. The descendants of Ishi were Zoeth and Ben-Zoheth. Then come the sons of Shelah, the son of Judah. Shelah's descendants included the father of Lakah, Lada, the father of Maresha, and the families of the house of workers who made fine linen from Beth-Ashbea. These workers were known for their skill in linen, a highly valued material for clothing and worship. Shelah's descendants also included Joachim, the men of Kozeba, and Joash and Seraph, who ruled in Moab and later returned to Bethlehem. These records are ancient. They were preserved because they mattered to the people who came after them. They were the potters, the craftsmen who lived in Netaim and Gedera. They stayed there and lived with the king and worked for him. These were not just ordinary workers. They were close to the center of leadership. Their hands shaped the tools and vessels used in the palace, in worship, and in everyday life. Their skills were valuable. The chronicler now turns his attention to the tribes east of the Jordan River, starting with the tribe of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. But from the very first sentence, the text tells us something unexpected. Though Reuben was the firstborn son of Israel, he did not keep his place of honor. He lost the rights that came with being the firstborn, not because of war or failure in leadership, but because he dishonored his father by sleeping with his father's concubine. Because of this sin, the birthright was taken away from him and given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. Joseph's line was then blessed with the rights and privileges that would have belonged to Reuben. Yet the genealogy still lists Reuben as the firstborn, showing the respect due to his birth order, even if the privilege passed to another. Although Joseph received the birthright, it was Judah who became the strongest among his brothers. It was from Judah that a ruler came, a line of kings that began with David. So even though the legal birthright went to Joseph's children, and Reuben was still the firstborn in name, it was Judah who rose in power and leadership. These tribal tensions and divine decisions shaped Israel's history. Then the sons of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, are listed in full: Hanoch, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. From these four sons, whole families and clans were established. The genealogy continues to unfold with the descendants of Joel, a man from Reuben's line. Joel's son was Shemaiah, and his son was Gog. Gog's son was Shimei, whose son was Micah. Micah fathered Reiah, and Reiah's son was Baal, not to be confused with the pagan god. Baal's son was Bera, who was a leader among the Reubenites. This Bera was taken into captivity by Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria. He was exiled, along with many others, when Assyria swept through the land and carried away the tribes beyond the Jordan. Bera is mentioned here as a representative of the fall, a man of leadership who was removed during a time of judgment and defeat. The chronicler then lists the relatives of Reuben's tribe all according to their families, as they were registered in their genealogical records. These men were Jael, the chief, followed by Zechariah, and Bela, the son of Azaz, who was the son of Shema, who was the son of Joel. These men lived in Aroer, and as their families grew, they expanded to Nebo and Baal-Meon. Their settlements did not stop there. They reached all the way to the eastern edge of the desert that borders the Euphrates River, for their cattle had increased greatly in the land of Gilead. These were not just shepherds, they were powerful owners of livestock, and their territory grew with their herds. In the days of Saul, Israel's first king, the Reubenites went to war against a group of desert people called the Hagarites. The Hagarites were likely descendants of Hagar, Ishmael's mother. The Reubenites defeated them in battle and took their territory. They lived in those captured lands until the time of exile, when Assyria would later remove them. Next, the chronicler tells us about the tribe of Gad, who lived to the north of Reuben, also on the eastern side of the Jordan. The Gadites lived beside them in the land of Bashan, as far as Salakah. Their genealogy is also recorded in detail. Their leader was Joel, and next to him was Shepham, then Jaanai, and then Shaphat, who lived in Bashan. Their relatives and their families were also noted: Michael, Meshullam, Sheba, Jorai, Jachan, Zia, and Eber, 7 men in all. These men were all sons of Abihail, who was the son of Huri, the son of Jeroah, the son of Gilead, the son of Michael, the son of Jeshishai, the son of Jado, the son of Buz. This line traces back many generations, showing how carefully their heritage was preserved. Further back in their ancestry, Ahi, the son of Abdiel, the son of Guni, was recognized as the head of their families. The tribe of Gad lived in Gilead, in Bashan, and in the towns that were scattered across the land. They spread into all the pastures and grazing lands of Sharon, all the way to the farthest limits of the region. All of these families and their descendants were recorded in the genealogical register during the reign of Jotham, king of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, king of Israel. These two kings ruled over separate parts of the divided kingdom, and it was during their time that the names of these people were carefully written down and preserved. The account continues with a powerful story of unity and strength. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh formed a great army. They were not just herdsmen or villagers. They were 44,760 warriors, all trained in the art of battle. These men were skilled in using shields, swords, and bows, and they were strong and brave. When war came, they did not hesitate to go into battle. They waged war against the Hagarites, who had aligned themselves with other desert peoples, Jeter, Naphish, and Nodab. But this was no ordinary war. The Reubenites, Gadites, and Manassites cried out to God in the middle of the battle. They did not trust in their strength. They called on God during the fight, and He heard their prayer because they trusted in Him. It was God who gave them the victory. They captured from the enemy 50,000 camels, 250,000 sheep, 2,000 donkeys, and took 100,000 people as captives. The number is astonishing, and many of the enemy fell in battle because God Himself fought for Israel. It was not just a military win, it was a spiritual triumph, won through trust in God. After the battle, the Israelites lived in the enemy's land until they were taken into exile generations later. The chapter then focuses on the half-tribe of Manasseh, who lived in the land from Bashan to Baal Hermon, including Sinir and Mount Hermon. This territory was in the north, near Lebanon. The half-tribe of Manasseh had become very numerous, growing in population and influence. Their leaders were strong men. Their names were Epher, Ishi, Eliel, Azriel, Jeremiah, Hodaviah, and Jadiel. These 7 were mighty warriors, famous men, and heads of their families. They were known not just for power, but for leadership and renown. They were men of substance and reputation. But despite their strength, their numbers, and their fame, the story ends with a warning. These tribes, the half-tribe of Manasseh, along with Reuben and Gad, were unfaithful to the God of their fathers. They began to worship the gods of the peoples of the land, the very nations that God had driven out before Israel. This betrayal would not go unnoticed. As a result of their unfaithfulness, the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, who was also called Tiglath-Pileser, and he came against them. He defeated them and took them away. They were carried into exile, to Hala, Habor, Hara, and the river of Gozan. These places were far from their homeland. They had been uprooted, scattered, and sent into foreign lands. And they remained there. This chapter focuses on one tribe only, Levi, the priestly tribe set apart by God to serve in His presence. While other tribes received land for farming, building cities, and raising families, Levi was chosen to serve at the tabernacle and later the temple. They were the teachers, singers, and guardians of worship. From them came the priests and the Levites, each with a sacred duty before God. The sons of Levi were 3, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. These were not just names, they represented the 3 great branches of service in the house of the Lord. Each family had different responsibilities. From Kohath came the most sacred line, the priests. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Then the text traces the high priestly line through Amram, the father of Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. Of these, Aaron was chosen to be the first high priest, the one who would enter the most holy place once a year. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Nadab and Abihu died before they had children because they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord. So the priestly line continued through Eleazar. From Eleazar came Phinehas, a man of zeal who once stopped a plague by standing for God's holiness. Phinehas fathered Abishua, who passed the line to Buki, then to Uzi, then to Zerahiah, and then to Meraioth. Meraioth became the father of Amariah, who fathered Ahitub, the father of Zadok, a faithful priest who served under King David and Solomon. Zadok fathered Ahimaaz, who fathered Azariah, then Johanan, then another Azariah, who served as a priest in Solomon's temple. This Azariah fathered Amariah, then came Ahitub, followed by another Zadok, who fathered Shallum. Shallum became the father of Hilkiah, the priest who found the book of the law during the reign of Josiah. Hilkiah fathered Azariah, who fathered Seraiah, and from Seraiah came Jehozadak. Jehozadak was carried into exile by the Babylonians when the Lord allowed Judah and Jerusalem to be taken captive and the temple destroyed. Though the city fell, the priestly line remained recorded, preserved amid loss. Jehozadak's name closed the line for this moment, but it would rise again in Ezra's time. Then the text traces the wider families of Levi. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, are named again, and now their descendants are fully detailed. The sons of Gershon were Libni and Shimei. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Ijar, Hebron, and Uziel. The sons of Merari were Mali and Mushi. These three branches, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, formed the core of the Levite ministry. The descendants of each family are listed with care. From Gershon came Libni, then Jahath, then Zimmah, followed by Joah, then Iddo, Zerah, and Jetheri. This was the line of Levites from Gershon's side. From Kohath came Amminadab, then Korah, a name remembered both for his position and his rebellion. Yet his descendants remained in service. From Korah came Asher, then Elkanah, then Abiasaph, then another Asher, then Tahath, Uriel, Uzziah, and Shaul. Elkanah also appears again. His family would be remembered through Samuel the prophet. Elkanah's sons were Amasai and Ahimoth, and from them came Elkanah, Zophai, Nahath, Eliab, Jeroham, Elkanah again, and finally Samuel. Samuel had two sons, Joel, the firstborn, and Abijah, his second. These two were appointed as judges, but did not walk in the ways of their father. Still, Samuel remains one of the most respected prophets and priests in Israel's story. The line of Merari is also recorded. His sons were Mali, then Libni, then Shimei, then Uzzah, followed by Shemaiah, Hagiah, and Asaiah. Every name represents a family dedicated to the work of God through music, service, or care for the tabernacle. Then the chronicler shifts to the ministers of music, the Levites appointed by David to serve before the Ark of the Covenant. These men stood daily in God's presence, leading worship through singing and instruments. They were not ordinary workers. They were appointed by divine call. The chief of these musicians was Heman, the singer. He was a descendant of Joel, son of Samuel, tracing through Elkanah, Jeroham, Eliel, Toa, Zuph, Elkanah, Mahath, Amasai, Elkanah, Joel, Azariah, Zephaniah, Tahath, Asher, Abiasaph, Korah, Izhar, Kohath, Levi, and finally Israel himself. Heman stood at the center of worship. On his right was Asaph, also a Levite, who stood at Haman's right hand. Asaph's line traced through Berechiah, Shemaiah, Michael, Basiah, Malchijah, Ethni, Zerah, Adiah, Ethan, Zimmah, Shimei, Jahath, Gershon, and Levi. On Heman's left stood Ethan from the line of Merari. His genealogy includes Kishi, Abdi, Malach, Hashabiah, Amaziah, Hilkiah, Amzi, Bani, Shamer, Mali, Mushi, Merari, and Levi. These three, Heman, Asaph, and Ethan, formed the leadership of temple music. They stood with cymbals, with lyres, with harps, and with voices lifted to the Lord. All their relatives, the Levites, were appointed to be in charge of the tabernacle of the house of God. But only the descendants of Aaron, the priestly branch, were chosen to present offerings on the altar of burnt sacrifice in the Holy of Holies and to make atonement for Israel. These priests lived in towns surrounding the land. The sons of Aaron had special allotments of land to dwell in. They were given Hebron with its surrounding pasture lands, though the fields and villages around it were given to Caleb, son of Jephunneh. To the priests were given cities of refuge, places like Hebron, Libnah, Jatir, Eshtemoa, Hilan, Debir, Ashan, and Beth-Shemesh. These towns came with their pasture lands so that the priests could live and serve without having to farm or fight. From the tribe of Benjamin, they were given Geba, Alameth, and Anathoth, all with pasture lands. 13 towns were given in total to the descendants of Aaron. The rest of the Kohathites, Levites, not in the priestly line, were given 10 towns from the tribes of Ephraim, Dan, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. The sons of Gershon were given 13 towns from the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and from the other half-tribe of Manasseh in Bashan. The sons of Merari were given 12 towns from the tribes of Reuben and Zebulun. So the people of Israel gave to the Levites these towns and their surrounding fields. These towns were not random gifts. They were sacred places designated so that God's servants would have homes to live in and lands to raise their animals. The tribe of Ephraim gave to the Kohathites towns like Shechem, a city of refuge in the hill country, and Gezer, Jokmeam, Beth-horon, Aijalon, and Gath-rimmon. The half-tribe of Manasseh gave Aner and Beliam, with fields and pasture lands. The sons of Gershon received Golan and Bashan, and Ashtaroth from Manasseh's half-tribe in the east. From Issachar they received Kedesh, Daberath, Ramoth, and Anem. From Asher they were given Mashal, Abdon, Hukok, and Rehob. From Naphtali they were given Kedesh and Galilee, Hamath-dor, and Kartan. The rest of the Merarites received Jokneam, Karta, Rimmon, and Tabor from Zebulun. From Reuben across the Jordan they received Bezer, Jaza, Kedemoth, and Mephath. From Gad they were given Ramoth in Gilead, Mahanaim, Heshbon, and Jazer. Each town was given with its fields. Each place was a provision from God, ensuring that the tribe he had chosen for sacred service would never be forgotten or left homeless. The chronicler now moves beyond the priestly line of Levi and returns to the other tribes of Israel, recording the descendants of each one by name. These were the families who formed the body of Israel: workers, warriors, farmers, leaders, and builders. Each tribe had its place in God's design. The record begins with the tribe of Issachar, the sons of Israel's ninth-born. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron, 4 in all. These sons became heads of their own families and clans. From Tola came Uzi, and from Uzi came Raphiah, then Jeriel, then Jammai, then Ibsam, and finally Shemuel. These were the leaders of their fathers' houses. They were powerful in their day, recognized as mighty men of valor, not just in strength, but in honor. In the time of King David, the number of men under their command, those ready for war, was counted to be 22,600. The next in line were the sons of Benjamin, whose descendants were also strong and numerous. The sons of Benjamin were Bela, Becher, and Jediael, 3 sons recorded in this list. From Bela came Esbon, Uzi, Uziel, Jeremoth, and Eri, 5 sons in total. They were heads of houses and strong warriors. The total number of men counted from their families, fit for battle, was 22,034. Becher, the second son of Benjamin, had descendants as well: Zemirah, Joash, Eleazar, Elioenai, Omri, Jeremoth, Abijah, Anathoth, and Alemeth. These were the sons of Becher. They too were counted as heads of their fathers' houses. All of them were men of strength, and the number of those listed by genealogy was 20,200. The third son, Jediael, had a son named Bilhan. From Bilhan came Jush, Benjamin, Ehud, Chenaanah, Zethan, Tarshish, and Ahishahar. These were heads of families and described again as mighty men of valor, strong warriors. The number of men ready for battle under them was 17,200, prepared to go out with shield and sword. Another branch of Benjamin's tribe is listed: Shuppim and Huppim, who were the sons of Ir, and Hushim, who was the son of Aher. These names preserve the lesser-known branches of Benjamin's line. Next comes the tribe of Naphtali, recorded briefly. The sons of Naphtali were Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shallum. These were the descendants of Bilhah, who had been a servant of Rachel and who became the mother of Naphtali. Then the chronicler turns to the tribe of Manasseh, but not the half in the east. This refers to the western portion. One of their lines begins with Ashuriel, born to Machir, the son of Manasseh, through his concubine, an Aramean woman. She also bore Machir a son named Gilead, who would later give his name to a whole region. Gilead had sons, Ezer and Helek. From Ezer came Zelophehad, who had only daughters, a detail recorded with special care because his daughters later petitioned for their inheritance, and God ruled in their favor. Hamalasheth, a sister of Gilead, bore Ishhod, Abiezer, and Mala. These names formed smaller clans within Manasseh's tribe. The son of Shemida, a descendant of Manasseh, included Ahian, Shechem, Lehi, and Aniam. Each one headed families, though they may not be widely known today. Their names were honored and remembered in Israel's national record. Then the list moves to the tribe of Ephraim, a major branch of the house of Joseph. The first name is Shuthelah, followed by his son Bered, then Tahath, then Eledah, and then Tahath again. These names reflect generations of the same family line. From there came Zabad, then Shuthelah again, and then Ezer and Elead. But these two, Ezer and Elead, were killed by the men of Gath, who were born in that land, because they had gone down to raid their livestock. It was a tragic moment, and when their father Ephraim heard about their death, he mourned deeply for many days. His family came to comfort him, grieving the loss of 2 sons in a foreign land. After his grief, Ephraim slept with his wife again, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. Ephraim named him Beriah, because he was born in a time of sorrow. The name Beriah means trouble, a reminder of the pain they had endured. From Beriah came Repha, then Resheph, then Telah, then Tahan, then Ladan, then Amihud, then Elishama, then Nun, and finally Joshua. This is Joshua son of Nun, the leader who brought Israel into the promised land after Moses. His inclusion here reminds us that from sorrow came strength. From Beriah's grief came the great deliverer. The territory of Ephraim expanded. They lived and settled in Bethel with surrounding villages. They also settled in the east at Naaran, and to the west at Gezer and Shechem, and Ayah and their towns. In the southern region they reached Beth-horon, Uzzen-shirah, Aijalon, and Gath-rimmon. These were the places where the sons of Joseph, including Manasseh and Ephraim, lived and built their homes. Their presence stretched across the heart of the land. Then the record moves to the tribe of Asher. The sons of Asher were Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, and Beriah, and their sister was Sarah. Sarah is one of the few women named in these genealogies, possibly because of a unique place in Asher's story or memory. The sons of Beriah were Heber and Malchiel, the father of Birzith. From Heber came Japhlet, Shomer, Hotham, and their sister Shua. From Japhlet came Pasach, Bimhal, and Ashvath. These were heads of families. From Shomer came Ahi, Roga, Jehuba, and Aram. The sons of Helam, Asher's brother, were Zophah, Imnah, Shelesh, and Amal. Zophah's descendants included Suah, Haran, Shual, Beri, and Imrah. Then came Bezer, Hod, Shammah, Shilsha, Ithran, and Bera. The sons of Jether were Jephunneh, Pispa, and Ara. The sons of Ulah were Ara, Haniel, and Reziah. These all were descendants of Asher, and they were not just family men. They were heads of their ancestral houses, men of great strength, choice warriors, and chiefs among the leaders of their tribe. The total number of men who were registered ready for military service was 26,000. The chronicler now returns to the genealogy of Benjamin, the beloved youngest son of Jacob, and gives a more focused and expanded account of his lineage. Earlier, Benjamin's family line was briefly introduced in chapter 7, but here in chapter 8, his descendants are traced in much greater detail, showing their strength, expansion, and influence, especially through a man named Saul, who would later become Israel's first king. Benjamin became the father of Bela, his firstborn. Then came Ashbel, the second son, Ahara, the third, Noha, the fourth, and Rapha, the fifth. Each of these sons became the father of their line of descendants, growing into clans that helped shape the tribe's identity and territory. The sons of Bela were many, and they were powerful. Among them were Adar, Gera, Abihud, Abishua, Naaman, Ahoa, Gera again, possibly another man with the same name, Shephuphan, and Huram. These sons carried on the strength and reputation of their father Bela, expanding his family line and planting the seeds of cities and influence. The family of Ehud, one of the prominent men of Benjamin, is recorded next. These men were heads of their fathers' houses, and they lived in Geba, a city assigned to Benjamin. But these men were carried into exile to Manahath, likely during one of the early foreign incursions or internal migrations. Among those exiled were Naaman, Ahijah, and Gera. Gera was the one who led them away into captivity. But Gera was also the father of Uzzah and Ahihud, ensuring that even during displacement the family continued to grow and be recorded. In a different part of the genealogy, another descendant of Benjamin, Shaharaim, had children in the land of Moab after he had sent away his wives Hushim and Bara. This man's story is unique as it includes both separation and renewal. With his wife Hodesh, Shaharaim fathered several sons. Their names were Jobab, Zibiah, Mesha, Malcolm, Juz, Sakia, and Mirma. These 7 were his sons, and they became heads of families, known in their generations. Shaharim also had sons through his first wife Hushim. Their names were Abitub and Elpal. These lines are recorded separately, showing the complexity and breadth of the tribe of Benjamin. From Elpal came Eber, Misham, and Shemed. Shemed built Ono and Lod with their surrounding villages. These were not small camps or forgotten towns. They were well-known locations, especially Lod, which would later be mentioned in the New Testament. The list continues with Beriah and Shema, who were heads of their fathers' houses in the tribe of Benjamin. These two men lived in Aijalon, and they drove out the inhabitants of Gath, showing that Benjamin's tribe was not only populated but militarily active and able to secure its territory. Their brother Ahio was also among the leading men. Beriah had sons named Shashak and Jeremoth. The family continued to grow from there, each name building on the last. From Elpal, another branch of Benjamin's tribe, came Zebediah, Arad, Eder, Michael, Ishpa, and Yoha. These were also sons of Elpaal. They formed families and helped establish the tribe's presence in the land. From Beriah came more descendants: Zebediah, Meshullam, Hizki, and Heber, followed by Ishmerai, Isliah, and Jobab. These men were sons of Beriah and continued to build on his household's legacy. From Shimei came Joachim, Zikri, Zabdi, Elionai, Zilithai, Eliel, Adiah, Beriah, and Shimrath. 9 sons in total. They were the sons of Shimei, all heads of their own houses. Then came the sons of Shashak, Ishpan, Eber, Eliel, Abdon, Zikri, Hanan, Hananiah, Elam, Anthothijah, Ifdiah, and Penuel. These were strong family names, and the chronicler does not overlook even one. From Jeroham came sons too: Shamsharai, Shehariah, Athaliah, Jarashiah, Eliah, and Zikri. These were heads of families, leaders among their clans, and men who contributed to the strength and structure of Benjamin's tribe. All these men were heads of their fathers' houses, and the record describes them as chiefs according to their generations. They lived in Jerusalem, showing that members of the tribe of Benjamin had a significant presence even in the city that became Israel's capital. Then the chronicler moves from the tribe as a whole and focuses on one of its most famous sons, Ner, the father of Kish. Kish fathered Saul, and Saul fathered Jonathan, Malchishua, Abinadab, and Eshbaal. This is King Saul, the first king of Israel. His name is honored here not for his success, but because he was the chosen vessel to begin Israel's monarchy. From Jonathan, Saul's son, came Merib-Baal, and Merib-Baal became the father of Micah. Micah's sons were Pithon, Melech, Tareah, and Ahaz. The line continues, showing that even after Saul's kingdom ended, his family line remained remembered and intact. From Ahaz came Jehoiada, who fathered Alameth, Asmaveth, and Zimri. Zimri fathered Moza, and Moza fathered Benaiah. Benaiah's son was Rapha, followed by Eleasa, and finally Azel. Azel had 6 sons, and their names were Azrikam, Bocheru, Ishmael, Shariah, Obadiah, and Hanan. These 6 sons formed the final household listed in this long and richly detailed chapter. The sons of Eshek, Azel's brother, are listed next: Ulam, his firstborn, followed by Jush, and then Eliphalet. The sons of Ulam were mighty warriors, especially skilled with the bow. They had many sons and grandsons, totaling 150 in all. This large number reflects a strong and flourishing household. All of these were from the tribe of Benjamin, and their names are honored and written because their tribe, though small, was filled with strength, loyalty, and leadership, even producing Israel's first king. After tracing the long genealogies of Israel's tribes, the chronicler now shifts focus to the return from exile. The people of Israel had been taken away from their land because of their unfaithfulness, their rebellion, and their breaking of the covenant. They were carried away into Babylon, far from the promised land. But now, as the chronicler writes, he looks to those who returned. This was not just a list of survivors. It was a restoration of identity, a reclaiming of sacred ground, and a sign that God's promises were not forgotten. The chapter begins by stating plainly that all Israel was listed by genealogies, written in the book of the kings of Israel. But Judah had been carried away to Babylon because of their unfaithfulness. This painful truth was not hidden. It was remembered, not to condemn, but to teach. Then the return begins. The first to come back and settle in their own possessions and towns were Israelites, priests, Levites, and temple servants. These people were not just anyone. They were people who remembered their heritage. They returned to build again what was lost, to reestablish their homes, and most importantly, to reestablish worship. In Jerusalem, the city of God, lived some from the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh. These were not just families trying to survive, they were people chosen to be the foundation of God's holy city once again. From the tribe of Judah there were Uthai, the son of Ammihud, son of Omri, son of Imri, son of Bani, a descendant of Perez, the son of Judah. With him were Messiah, son of Baruch, son of Kol-Hoseh, son of Haziah, son of Adiah, son of Joiarib, son of Zechariah, son of the Shilonite. Also from Judah were Asaiah, the firstborn of the Shilonites, and his sons. These names carried history, representing generations that had remained faithful through exile and returned in hope. From the tribe of Benjamin came Sallu, son of Meshullam, son of Hodaviah, son of Hasenuah. Along with him were Ibniah, son of Jeroham, Elah, son of Uzi, son of Mikri, and Meshullam, son of Shephatiah, son of Reuel, son of Ibnijah. These men and their families made up a strong presence in Jerusalem. The total number of men from Judah and Benjamin who settled in Jerusalem was 956, all of them heads of their fathers' houses, men of honor and leadership. Then the priests are listed. These were Jedaiah, Jehoiarib, and Joshin. With them was Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Meshullam, son of Zadok, son of Meraioth, son of Ahitub, the chief officer of the house of God. Also among the priests were Adiah, son of Jeroham, son of Pashur, son of Malchijah, and Masai, son of Adiel, son of Jazerah, son of Meshullam, son of Meshilemith, son of Immer. These priests numbered 1,760, mighty men able for the work of the house of God. They were not idle. They were workers, guardians, and worshipers, fully dedicated to the sacred duties of the temple. Among the Levites were Shemaiah, son of Hashub, son of Azrikam, son of Hashabiah, from the sons of Merari. Also Bakbakar, Haresh, Galal, and Mattaniah, son of Micah, son of Zikri, son of Asaph. These were musicians and guardians of worship. Also present was Obadiah, son of Shemaiah, son of Galal, son of Jeduthun, and Berechiah, son of Asa, son of Elkanah, who lived in the villages of the Netophathites. The gatekeepers were named next: Shallum, Akub, Talmon, Ahiman, and their brothers. Shallum was the chief of them. They had served faithfully since the days of the kings, keeping watch at the gates of the house of the Lord, standing by the king's gate on the east. Shallum was descended from Kor, son of Abiasaph, son of Korah. He and his brothers of the Korahites were over the work of the temple's thresholds. They had long been keepers of the entrances, and their fathers had been gatekeepers of the tent of meeting, chosen by David and Samuel the seer for this sacred trust. They and their sons guarded the gates of the house of the Lord on all four sides, east, west, north, and south. Their relatives living in their villages would come at appointed times to join them in their duties. 4 chief gatekeepers, Levites, were entrusted with the rooms and treasuries in the house of God. They stayed through the night near the temple, for their duty was to guard it, and they had charge of opening it each morning. Some of them were also responsible for the utensils used in worship. They counted them when they brought them in and when they took them out. Others were in charge of the furnishings and sacred items, flour, wine, oil, incense, and spices. Some of the priests prepared the mixtures of spices. Mattathiah, one of the Levites, the firstborn of Shallum the Korahite, had the responsibility over things baked in pans, possibly offerings made of grain. Others of their brothers from the Kohathites were in charge of preparing the bread set out each Sabbath. The singers, heads of families among the Levites, lived in rooms of the temple. They were free from other duties because their job was to sing day and night. They were appointed for this work without ceasing, praising God continually. These were the heads of the fathers' houses of the Levites, according to their generations, chief men, who lived at Jerusalem. The chapter then closes with a return to the line of Saul, showing how his line was recorded before Israel's first king took the throne. Saul's genealogy is traced from Jael, the father of Gibeon, who lived there with his wife Maacah. Their sons included Abdon, Zur, Kish, Baal, Ner, Nadab, Gedor, Ahio, Zechariah, and Mikloth, who fathered Shimeam. They lived in Jerusalem near their relatives. Ner fathered Kish, and Kish fathered Saul. Saul's sons were Jonathan, Malchishua, Abinadab, and Eshbaal. Jonathan fathered Merib-Baal, and he fathered Micah. Micah's sons were Pithon, Melech, Tarea, and Ahaz. Ahaz fathered Jarah, who fathered Alameth, Asmaveth, and Zimri. Zimri fathered Moza. Moza fathered Benaiah, and Benaiah's son was Raphiah, followed by Eleasa, and then Azel. Azel had 6 sons. Their names were Azrikam, Bosharu, Ishmael, Sheariah, Obadiah, and Hanan. These were the sons of Azel. Now the focus shifts to the tragic end of King Saul. Though he was Israel's first king, his reign ended in sorrow and disobedience. The chapter records the day he fell, not only in battle, but from grace. The Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before them, falling slain on Mount Gilboa. It was a disastrous day. The enemy pushed hard against the army, and the forces of Israel collapsed. The Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons. They struck down Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. These men died by their father's side, loyal to the end, fallen in war. The battle grew fierce, and Saul was surrounded. Archers found him, and he was wounded by their arrows. Realizing the end had come, Saul turned to his armor-bearer and said, "Draw your sword and kill me, or these uncircumcised will come and abuse me." But his armor-bearer was terrified and refused. So Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. When his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he too fell on his sword and died. So Saul died, and his 3 sons died with him, and all his house fell that day. When all the men of Israel in the valley saw that the army had fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, They abandoned their cities and fled. The Philistines came and lived in those towns. The next day the Philistines came to strip the slain. They found Saul and his sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They stripped Saul, took his head and armor, and sent messengers throughout their land to proclaim the news to their idols and people. They put his armor in the house of their gods and fastened his head in the temple of Dagon. But when the people of Jabesh-Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their valiant men arose. They went and took the bodies of Saul and his sons and brought them to Jabesh. They buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and they fasted for 7 days. The chapter ends with a solemn explanation. Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord. He even consulted a medium, seeking guidance instead of turning to God. Because of this, God put him to death and gave the kingdom to David, the son of Jesse. After the fall of Saul and the sorrow that followed, a new chapter of Israel's story begins, this time with David, the man chosen by God. Though he had long been anointed and had waited patiently while Saul reigned, now the time had come, and all the people of Israel were ready to follow him. Then all Israel gathered themselves to David at Hebron, a city in the land of Judah. The people came as one, united, and they said to him, "Look, we are your own flesh and blood. Even while Saul was king, you were the one who led Israel in and out. And the Lord your God said to you, 'You shall shepherd my people Israel, and you shall be ruler over my people Israel.'" The people remembered that it was David, not Saul, who had led them in victories. And more importantly, they remembered what God had spoken, that David was chosen as shepherd and king. So all the elders of Israel came to Hebron, and David made a covenant with them before the Lord. It was a holy agreement. The elders and David stood before God, and they anointed David king over Israel, just as the Lord had spoken through the prophet Samuel. Once anointed, David and all Israel set their sights on a city that did not yet belong to them. They went to Jerusalem, which at that time was still known as Jebus. The Jebusites who lived there mocked David and said, "You will not come in here." But they did not know that God was with David. David captured the stronghold of Zion, which became the city of David. David said, "Whoever strikes the Jebusites first shall be chief and commander." It was Joab, the son of Zeruiah, David's nephew, who went up first, and so Joab became chief. He led the attack, and the city was taken. David then lived in the stronghold, and he called it the City of David. He built up the city around it from the Millo inward. David continued to grow greater and stronger because the Lord of hosts was with him. Now the writer lists the mighty men who stood with David, those who supported him when his kingdom was still growing. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were men of war, men of valor, and men of loyalty. With their strength and faithfulness, they helped David secure his rule, just as the Lord had promised concerning Israel. First among them was Jashobeam the Hachmonite, chief of the 30. He once lifted up his spear and killed 300 men in one battle. His courage and strength were remembered and honored. Next was Eleazar, the son of Dodo the Ahohite. He was among the 3 mighty men. One time, during a battle with the Philistines at Pasdamim, when the men of Israel drew back, Eleazar stood his ground. He fought until his hand clung to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. There was also Shammah, though his name is not detailed here as in other records. Then came a story of the 30 chiefs going down to David at the rock near the cave of Adullam, while a troop of Philistines was camped in the valley of Rephaim. David was in a stronghold, and he longed for water. He said, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate." Hearing this, 3 of the 30 chiefs broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem, and brought it to David. But David would not drink it. He poured it out as an offering to the Lord, saying, "Far be it from me before my God that I should do this. Should I drink the blood of these men who went at the risk of their lives?" So he poured it out to honor their sacrifice. Among the 3 mighty men, none was more honored than Abishai, the brother of Joab. He raised his spear against 300 men and killed them, and he had a name among the mighty. Yet he did not attain to the first 3, though he was made their chief. Another great warrior was Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada. He was a valiant man from Kabzeel, known for many great deeds. He struck down 2 lion-like men of Moab, and he went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. He also killed an Egyptian man of great stature, a giant holding a spear like a weaver's beam. Benaiah went to him with only a staff, snatched the spear from his hand, and killed him with it. Because of these things, Benaiah had a name among the 30 mighty men. He was honored, but like Abishai, he did not reach the rank of the top 3. Yet David set him over his personal guard. Then the writer lists the rest of the 30. These included Asahel, the brother of Joab, Elhanan, the son of Dodo from Bethlehem, Shammath the Hararite, Helez the Pelonite, Ira the son of Ikesh the Tekoite, Abiezer the Anathothite, Sibbecai the Hushathite, Eli the Ahohite, Maharai the Netophathite, Heled the son of Baana the Netophathite, Ithai the son of Ribai of Gibeah of the children of Benjamin. The list continues with Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hurai of the brooks of Gash, Abiel the Arbathite, Asmaveth of Baharum, Eliabah the Shalbanite, the sons of Hashem the Gizonite, Jonathan, son of Shagi the Hararite, Ahiam, son of Sakar the Hararite, Eliphal, son of Hefer the Macherathite, Ahijah the Pelonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Naarai the son of Ezbai, also Joel the brother of Nathan, Mibhar, son of Hagri, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai the Berathite, the armor-bearer of Joab, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Uriah the Hittite, Zabad the son of Alai, and more, Adina the son of Shiza the Reubenite, a chief of the Reubenites, Hanan the son of Maacah, Joshaphat the Mithnite, Uzziah the Ashterathite, Shammah and Jael the sons of Hotham the Aroerite, Jediael the son of Shimri, Yoha his brother, Eliel the Mahavite, Jerubai and Joshaviah the sons of Elnam, Ithma the Moabite, Eliel, Obed, and Jaasiel the Mesobite. These were the men who stood with David. Their names are written in the scroll of Israel's rise, men of war, of courage, and of loyalty. Now the chronicler lists those who joined David while he was still in hiding, while Saul was still king. These men were not fair-weather followers. They found David in hard times and stood with him, knowing that God was with him. First came those who joined him at Ziklag while he was still hiding from Saul. They were among the mighty men, ready for battle. They could use both right and left hands with bows and stones in war. They were from Saul's own tribe, the tribe of Benjamin. Among them were Ahiezer, the chief, and Joash, the sons of Shammah of Gibeah, Jeziel and Pelet, sons of Asmaveth, Baracha, and Jehu of Anathoth. They were joined by others, Ishmaiah the Gibeonite, a mighty warrior among the 30 and a leader over 30, Jeremiah, Jahaziel, Johanan, and Jozabad the Gederathite, Eluzai, Jeremoth, Bealiah, Shemariah, and Shephatiah the Haruphite, Elkanah, Ishiah, Azarel, Jozer, and Jashabim, all Korahites, and Joelah and Zebediah, sons of Jeroham, from Gedor. Some of the Gadites left their territory and came to David at his stronghold in the wilderness. They were mighty warriors, trained for battle, carrying shields and spears, with faces like lions and swift as gazelles on the mountains. Their leader was Ezer, followed by Obadiah, Eliab, Mishmana, Jeremiah, Attai, Eliel, Johanan, Elzabad, Jeremiah again, and Machbanai. All 10 were commanders in David's growing army. They crossed the Jordan River during flood season, breaking through and driving out enemies on both sides. Their courage and unity were unmatched. Even from Benjamin and Judah, some men came to David at his stronghold. When David saw them, he went out to meet them and said, "If you've come to me in peace to help me, then my heart will be with you. But if you've come to betray me, even though I've done no wrong, may the God of our fathers see and judge." Then the Spirit of God came upon Amasai, the chief of the 30, and he said, "We are yours, O David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Peace, peace to you, and peace to those who help you, for your God helps you." So David received them and made them captains in his army. More men came to David daily until his army became like the army of God. The chapter ends with a list of those who came to David at Hebron, ready to make him king over all Israel. Warriors came from every tribe: Judah, Simeon, Levi, Benjamin, Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, Dan, Asher, and even from across the Jordan, from Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They came fully armed, with loyal hearts, ready to make David king. From Issachar came men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. All these men came with a whole heart to Hebron to make David king. And they feasted with him for 3 days, for their relatives had prepared food for them. Even those from far away brought donkeys, camels, mules, and oxen loaded with food, flour, cakes, raisins, wine, oil, oxen, and sheep in abundance. There was joy in Israel, for David, once hunted, was now king, and the people rejoiced under God's blessing. After David was made king and settled in his new role, his heart turned toward something holy. He gathered together all his leaders, the commanders of thousands and hundreds, every leader in Israel. David spoke to them and to the whole assembly of Israel, saying, "If it seems good to you, and if it is from the Lord our God, let us send word everywhere to our fellow Israelites throughout the land, and also to the priests and Levites in their towns and pasture lands to gather with us." His purpose was clear: to bring back the ark of our God, the ark of the covenant. He reminded them, "We did not inquire of it in the days of Saul." The ark, which represented God's presence, had been neglected. David wanted it returned to its rightful place. The idea pleased all the people, and they agreed to do it. So David assembled all Israel, from the Shihor River in Egypt to Lebo Hamath, to bring the ark of God from Kiriath Jearim. David and all Israel went up to Baalah, that is Kiriath Jearim, in Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, the ark that bears the name of the Lord, who is enthroned between the cherubim. They placed the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab. Uzzah and Ahio were guiding the cart. David and all Israel were celebrating with all their might before God, with songs, lyres, harps, tambourines, cymbals, and trumpets. It was a great procession of worship and joy. But when they reached the threshing floor of Kedon, something tragic happened. The oxen stumbled, and Uzzah reached out his hand to steady the ark. The moment his hand touched the holy ark, the anger of the Lord burned against him, and God struck him down. Uzzah died there before God. David was shocked and saddened. He became angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah, and that place was named Perez Uzzah, meaning the breaking out against Uzzah, and it is still called that. David was now afraid of God, and he said, "How can I ever bring the ark of God to me?" So he did not bring the ark to the city of David. Instead, he took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. The ark of God remained with the family of Obed-Edom in his house for 3 months, and during that time the Lord blessed his household and everything he had. After this, David's fame and strength grew. Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David. He sent cedar logs along with stonemasons and carpenters to build a palace for David. David realized that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that God's kingdom was being lifted up for the sake of his people. David knew this was not just a personal victory, it was for the nation. In Jerusalem, David took more wives, and he became the father of more sons and daughters. The names of the children born to him in Jerusalem were Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ebar, Elishua, Elpalet, Noga, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Beeliada, and Eliphalet. Then came war. The Philistines heard that David had been anointed king, and they went up to attack him. David heard about it and went out against them. The Philistines came and raided the valley of Rephaim. David inquired of God, asking, "Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand?" The Lord answered, "Go up, I will deliver them into your hand." So David and his men went to Baal-perazim, and there they defeated the Philistines. David said, "As waters break out, God has broken out against my enemies by my hand." So the place was named Baal-perazim, meaning the Lord who breaks out. The Philistines abandoned their gods there, and David ordered them to be burned with fire. Later, the Philistines raided the valley again. David once again inquired of God. This time God said, "Do not go up directly. Instead, circle them and come upon them in front of the balsam trees. When you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the trees, then move out quickly, because that will mean God has gone out before you to strike the Philistine army." David did as God commanded, and they struck down the Philistine army from Gibeon to Gezer. David's fame spread throughout every land, and the Lord brought fear of him upon all nations. David did not forget the ark. This time he would bring it up the right way. He prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched a tent for it, but he said, "No one but the Levites may carry the ark of God, because the Lord chose them to carry it and to minister before him forever." David gathered all Israel in Jerusalem to bring up the ark to the place he had prepared. He summoned the sons of Aaron and the Levites, Uriel from the family of Kohath, Asaiah from the family of Merari, Joel from the family of Gershom, Shemaiah from Elizaphan, Eliel from Hebron, and Amminadab from Uzziel. He said to them, "You are the heads of the Levite families. Consecrate yourselves, you and your fellow Levites, so that you may bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to the place I've prepared for it. Because you didn't carry it the first time, the Lord our God broke out against us. We didn't inquire of him about the proper order." So the priests and Levites consecrated themselves. They took this seriously. The Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders using poles, just as the Lord commanded through Moses. David instructed the leaders of the Levites to appoint singers to raise their voices with resounding joy using musical instruments, lyres, harps, and cymbals. The Levites appointed Heman, son of Joel, and Asaph, son of Berechiah, and from the sons of Merari, Ethan, son of Cushiah. They gathered musicians and gatekeepers, and everyone took their places. David wore a robe of fine linen, as did the Levites who were carrying the ark, the singers, and the choir directors. David also wore a linen ephod, a priestly garment. He danced with all his might before the Lord. As the ark of the covenant entered Jerusalem, Michal, daughter of Saul and wife of David, looked out from a window. She saw David leaping and dancing, and she despised him in her heart. But David paid no attention. This moment wasn't about him. It was about bringing God's presence back to the center of Israel's life. They brought the ark of God and set it in the tent David had pitched for it. Then they offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. When the offerings were finished, David blessed the people in the name of the Lord. He gave a gift to every Israelite, man and woman alike, a loaf of bread, a piece of meat, and a cake of raisins. David appointed Levites to minister before the ark, to give thanks and praise to the Lord. Among them were Asaph the chief, Zechariah as his second, followed by Jeiel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Mattithiah, Eliab, Benaiah, Obed-Edom, and Jeiel. The musicians used harps and lyres. Asaph sounded the cymbals. The priests Benaiah and Jahaziel blew trumpets regularly before the ark. That day, David first appointed Asaph and his associates to give praise to the Lord with this song. Give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. Sing to him, sing praises to him, tell of all his wonderful acts. Glory in his holy name, let the hearts of those who seek the Lord rejoice. The song continues with a call to remember God's wonders, his covenant with Abraham, and his faithfulness to Israel. It recounts how God protected his people, saying, "Do not touch my anointed ones, do my prophets no harm." They sang of God's power in creation, his splendor and majesty, and they called the nations to ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name, bring an offering and come before him. David closed the song with these words, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His mercy endures forever. Cry out, save us, God of our salvation. Gather us and deliver us from the nations." Then all the people said, "Amen," and praised the Lord. David left Asaph and his brothers before the ark to minister regularly. He appointed Obed-Edom and his 68 associates to help. Zadok the priest was appointed at the tabernacle in Gibeon to continue burnt offerings and worship according to the law of Moses. With trumpets, instruments, and songs, the people worshiped the Lord. Then all the people departed, each to his home, and David returned to bless his household. After David had settled in his palace and the Lord had given him rest from all his surrounding enemies, a deeper longing began to stir in his heart. David said to Nathan the prophet, "Here I am, living in a house of cedar, while the ark of the covenant of the Lord remains under a tent." David was deeply aware of the honor he now lived in, and it bothered him that the ark, the symbol of God's presence, had no permanent home. Nathan replied, "Do whatever is in your heart, for God is with you." But that night, the word of God came to Nathan with a message that David had not expected. God said, "Go and tell my servant David, you are not the one to build me a house to dwell in." God reminded David that ever since he brought Israel out of Egypt, he had never dwelled in a house. He had moved from tent to tent, from one dwelling to another. He had never asked any of Israel's leaders, "Why have you not built me a house of cedar?" Then the Lord instructed Nathan to speak directly to David. "I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, and made you ruler over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone. I cut off your enemies from before you. Now I will make your name great, like the names of the greatest men on earth." God promised more than just fame. He said, "I will provide a place for my people Israel. I will plant them so they can have a home of their own and no longer be disturbed. Wicked people will not oppress them anymore as they once did. I will give you rest from all your enemies." Then God made a covenant with David. "The Lord declares to you that he will build a house for you. When your days are over and you go to be with your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, and I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for me, and I will establish his throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son." God added, "I will never take my love away from him as I took it away from Saul. Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever." When Nathan reported all these words to David, David was overwhelmed. He went in and sat before the Lord, and he said, "Who am I, Lord God, and what is my family that you have brought me this far?" David praised God for his greatness, for choosing Israel, and for choosing him. He acknowledged that God alone is God, and there is no one like him. Then David prayed, "Let the word you have spoken about me and my house be established forever. Do as you have promised, that your name will be great forever." He ended his prayer humbly, saying, "You, Lord, have blessed your servant's house. Let it be blessed forever." With God's covenant over David's life, the record now turns to victories in battle, showing how the Lord fulfilled his promise to give David rest from his enemies. David went out and defeated the Philistines, subduing them and taking Gath and its surrounding villages. He also defeated the Moabites, and they became subjects to David, bringing him tribute. David then marched against Hadadezer, king of Zobah, as he went to establish control over the Euphrates River. David struck down a great number of his soldiers. He captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all the horses except for 100. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, David struck down 22,000 of them. He placed garrisons in Aramean territory, and they too became subject to him and brought tribute. The scripture says, "The Lord gave David victory wherever he went." David took the gold shields carried by Hadadezer's officers and brought them to Jerusalem. He also took large quantities of bronze from Tebah and Kun, towns that belonged to Hadadezer. From that bronze, Solomon later made the bronze sea, the pillars, and other items for the temple. When Tu, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated Hadadezer, he sent his son Hadaram to greet David and bless him. Tu had also been at war with Hadadezer. Hadaram brought gifts of gold, silver, and bronze. David dedicated these things to the Lord, along with the silver and gold he had taken from all the nations: Edom, Moab, Ammon, the Philistines, and Amalek. David became famous for his victories, including one over 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He placed garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became his subjects. Again, the text says, "The Lord gave David victory wherever he went." David reigned over all Israel and did what was just and right for all his people. Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was the recorder. Zadok and Ahimelech were priests. Shavsha was the secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the king's bodyguard, and David's sons were chief officials at the king's side. Sometime later, Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, died, and his son succeeded him. David said, "I will show kindness to Hanun, son of Nahash, because his father showed kindness to me." So David sent messengers to express sympathy. But when the messengers arrived, the Ammonite commander said to Hanun, "Do you think David is honoring your father? His men have come to spy on the land." So Hanun seized David's envoys, shaved off their beards, cut off their garments at the hips, and sent them away in shame. When David heard what had happened, he sent men to meet his disgraced servants. He told them to stay at Jericho until their beards grew back. Meanwhile, the Ammonites realized they had become repulsive to David, so they hired 32,000 chariots from Aram-Naharaim, Aram-Makkah, and Zobah, along with the king of Makkah and his troops. They pitched camp before the city of Medeba. David heard and sent Joab and the entire army. The Ammonites came out and drew up in battle at the entrance of the city while the allied kings positioned themselves in the open country. Joab saw they were trapped, battle lines in front and behind. So he chose some of the best troops of Israel to fight the Arameans. He put his brother Abishai in charge of the rest to face the Ammonites. Joab said, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, you help me. If the Ammonites are too strong for you, I'll help you. Be strong, and let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. The Lord will do what is good in his sight." So Joab and Abishai went into battle. The Arameans fled before Israel, and when the Ammonites saw their allies retreat, they also fled and retreated into the city. Joab returned to Jerusalem. Later the Arameans regrouped. David gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan, and attacked them. He killed 7,000 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers. The commander Shophak was killed. When the kings allied with Hadadezer saw they were defeated, they made peace with David and served him. The Arameans would no longer help the Ammonites. In the spring, at the time kings go to war, Joab led the army and ravaged the land of the Ammonites. He went to Rabbah and besieged it. David remained in Jerusalem. Joab captured Rabbah and tore down its defenses. David took the crown from the head of the Ammonite king. It weighed a talent of gold and was set with precious stones. It was placed on David's head. He took a great amount of plunder from the city. He brought out the people and put them to work with saws, iron picks, and axes. This he did to all the Ammonite towns. Then David and the army returned to Jerusalem. After this, war broke out with the Philistines at Gezer. Sibbecai the Hushathite struck down Sippai, a descendant of the giants, and the Philistines were subdued. Again, war broke out. Elhanan, son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear had a shaft like a weaver's rod. Still another battle occurred at Gath, where a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in total, also descended from the giants. He mocked Israel, but Jonathan, son of Shemaiah, David's brother, killed him. These were descendants of the Rephaites in Gath. They fell at the hands of David and his men. Then Satan rose up against Israel and stirred up David to take a census of Israel. David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, "Go and count the people of Israel from Beersheba to Dan, and bring me the result, so I may know their number." But Joab was troubled and replied, "May the Lord multiply his people 100 times. But my lord the king, are not all these people already your servants? Why does my lord want to do this? Why should it bring guilt on Israel?" Yet the king's command overruled Joab. So Joab went out and traveled throughout all Israel, then returned to Jerusalem. He gave the count to David, 1,100,000 men in Israel who could handle a sword, and 470,000 in Judah. But Joab did not include Levi and Benjamin in the count because the king's order was so detestable to him. And God was displeased with David for this action, and he struck Israel. Then David said to God, I have sinned greatly by doing this. Please take away the guilt of your servant. I have acted very foolishly. The Lord sent Gad, David's seer, with a message. Choose for yourself one of 3 punishments: 3 years of famine, 3 months of being swept away before your enemies, or 3 days of the sword of the Lord, plague in the land, with the angel of the Lord destroying throughout Israel. David said to Gad, I am in deep distress. Let me fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is very great, but do not let me fall into human hands. So the Lord sent a plague on Israel, and 70,000 men fell. God sent an angel to destroy Jerusalem, but as the angel was about to do so, the Lord relented. He said to the angel, Enough! Withdraw your hand. The angel was standing by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel of the Lord standing between earth and heaven, holding a drawn sword over Jerusalem. David and the elders, clothed in sackcloth, fell face down. David cried out to God, Was it not I who ordered the fighting men to be counted? I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. These are but sheep. What have they done? Let your hand fall on me and my family, but do not let this plague remain on your people. Then the angel of the Lord commanded Gad to tell David to build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah. David went up immediately as Gad had said in the name of the Lord. When Araunah saw David approaching, he went out and bowed with his face to the ground. David said, Let me buy the threshing floor from you so I can build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be stopped. Araunah said, Take it. Let my lord the king do whatever seems good to him. I give you the oxen for burnt offerings, the threshing sledges for wood, and the wheat for the grain offering. I give it all. But David replied, No, I insist on paying the full price. I will not offer to the Lord what costs me nothing. So David paid 600 shekels of gold for the site. He built an altar and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. He called on the Lord, and God answered with fire from heaven on the altar. Then the Lord commanded the angel to put away his sword. At that moment David saw that the Lord had answered him at the threshing floor of Araunah, and he offered sacrifices there. The tabernacle and altar of Moses were still at Gibeon, but David was afraid to go there because of the sword of the angel. So he worshipped the Lord at the new altar he had built. David said, This is the house of the Lord God, and this is the altar of burnt offering for Israel. He made preparations for the building of the temple, even though he would not be the one to build it. He ordered stone cutters to prepare dressed stone for building the house. He gathered iron in great quantities for nails and hinges, and bronze in such abundance it could not be weighed. He also provided an enormous amount of cedar logs, supplied by the Sidonians and Tyrians. David said, My son Solomon is young and inexperienced, and the house to be built for the Lord must be exceedingly magnificent, famous, and glorious in all lands, so I will make preparations for it. So David provided abundantly before his death. Then he called for Solomon and charged him to build a house for the Lord God of Israel. David said, My son, I had it in my heart to build a house for the name of the Lord my God. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, You have shed much blood and fought many wars. You are not to build a house for my name because you have shed blood. But he said to me, Your son Solomon will build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him as my son, and I will be his father. I will establish his kingdom forever if he continues to obey my commands and laws." David then told Solomon, "Now, my son, may the Lord be with you and give you success as you build the house of the Lord. Only be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged." He told Solomon that he had provided 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, bronze, and iron beyond measure, timber and stone, and skilled workers, stonemasons, carpenters, and craftsmen. David encouraged him, saying, "Now begin the work, and the Lord be with you." He also commanded the leaders of Israel to help Solomon. He said, "The Lord your God is with you and has given you peace. Now devote your heart and soul to seeking the Lord. Begin to build the sanctuary so the ark and sacred items may be brought into the temple built for the name of the Lord." When David was old and full of years, he made his son Solomon king over Israel. He gathered together all the leaders of Israel, along with the priests and Levites. The Levites, who were 30 years old and older, were counted, and their number was 38,000. Of these, 24,000 were to oversee the work of the temple. 6,000 were officers and judges, 4,000 were gatekeepers, and 4,000 were musicians praising the Lord with instruments that David had made for worship. David organized the Levites into groups according to the 3 sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. From Gershon came Ladan and Shimei. Ladan had 3 sons, Jehiel, the chief, Zetham, and Joel. Shimei had 3 sons too, Shelomoth, Haziel, and Haran. The sons of Kohath were Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. The children of Amram included Aaron and Moses. Aaron and his descendants were set apart to offer sacrifices, burn incense, and bless in God's name forever. Moses' sons, Gershom and Eleazar, were counted among the Levites. From Merari came Mali and Mushi. Mali's sons were Eleazar and Kish. Eleazar had no sons, only daughters. Their cousins, the sons of Kish, married them. These were the families of Levi, all listed by name. David's last instructions were that the Levites were to serve from the age of 20, because the Lord had given peace, and the Levites no longer had to carry the tabernacle. They were now to assist the priests, care for the courts, keep the articles of worship, and stand every morning and evening to thank and praise the Lord. David, with Zadok from the line of Eleazar and Ahimelech from the line of Ithamar, organized the divisions of the priests. Among Aaron's sons, there were more leaders from Eleazar's descendants, so they were divided accordingly, 16 heads from Eleazar and 8 from Ithamar. They cast lots to determine their order of service. The first lot fell to Jehoiarib, the second to Jediah, the third to Harim, the fourth to Seorim, and so on through 24 divisions. Each division was assigned to serve in the temple of the Lord, according to the schedule established by David and the priests. These were the sons of Aaron, chosen to serve in the house of the Lord. Then the rest of the Levites were also divided. The sons of Amram, Shubael, the sons of Rehabiah, from Izhar, Shelomoth, from Hebron, Jeriah, Amariah, Jahaziel, and Jekameam. From Uzziel came Micah and Ishiah. They were all assigned their duties by lot, just like their relatives the priests, under the supervision of David, Zadok, Ahimelech, and the heads of families. This ensured that everyone had a share in the ministry, the great and the small alike, the teacher and the student, each according to their assignment. David, together with the commanders of the army, now appointed men from the Levite families who would be responsible for a very sacred task, the ministry of music. These men were chosen to prophesy with harps, lyres, and cymbals in the service of the temple. They were not just musicians. They were prophets with instruments, ministering with music that came from the Spirit of God. From the family of Asaph were sons who were under Asaph's direction: Zakur, Joseph, Nethaniah, and Asherela. Asaph himself prophesied under the king's authority. From the family of Jeduthun came 6 sons: Gedaliah, Zeri, Jeshiah, Shimei, Hashabiah, and Mattithiah. They prophesied with the harp and gave thanks and praise to the Lord under the direction of their father Jeduthun. From the family of Haman, the king's seer, came many sons: Bukiah, Mattaniah, Uzziel, Shebuel, Jeremoth, Hananiah, Hanani, Eliathah, Gidalti, Romamti-Ezer, Joshbekasha, Malothi, Hothar, and Mahazioth, all of them gifted to serve the Lord through music. God had given Haman 14 sons and 3 daughters. All these were under the direction of their fathers for music in the house of the Lord. They played cymbals, lyres, and harps for the service of the temple, with the oversight of Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman, all under the command of King David. Altogether, there were 288 skilled and trained musicians who were responsible for music ministry in the house of God. To assign their duties, they cast lots for each group, young and old alike, teacher and student. The first lot fell to Joseph, the second to Gedaliah, and the rest were listed in order: Zakur, Izri, Nethaniah, Bukiah, Jesharela, Jeshiah, Mattaniah, Shimei, Azarel, Hashabiah, Shubael, Mattithiah, Jeremoth, Hananiah, Joshbekasha, Hanani, Malothi, Eliathah, Hothar, Gidalti, Mahazioth, and Romamti-Ezer. Each one served as assigned, faithfully using their musical gift to glorify God. Now the gatekeepers were appointed. They were not just guards, they were spiritual watchmen over the entrances of the temple. From the Korahites, Meshelemiah, son of Kor, was appointed. His sons were Zechariah the firstborn, Jediel the second, Zebediah the third, Jathniel the fourth, Elam the fifth, Jehohanan the sixth, and Elihoenai the seventh. From Obed-Edom, who had faithfully hosted the ark in his home, came his sons who also became gatekeepers: Shemaiah the firstborn, Jehozabad the second, Joah the third, Sakar the fourth, Nethanel the fifth, Amiel the sixth, Issachar the seventh, and Pulathai the eighth, for God had blessed Obed-Edom. Obed-Edom's son Shemaiah also had sons who were leaders in their father's house, for they were strong, capable men. Their names were Othni, Raphael, Obed, Elzabad, and his brothers Elihu and Semachiah. All these were sons of Obed-Edom, and they, along with their sons and relatives, 62 strong men, served as gatekeepers. Meshelemiah had sons and relatives, 18 able men. From the Merarites, Hosa had sons: Shimri the chief, even though he was not the firstborn, Hilkiah the second, Tabaliah the third, and Zechariah the fourth. Hosa's family had 13 in total. These gatekeepers were assigned by family, eastward, westward, northward, and southward, to guard the temple gates. The lots were cast for each gate. The east gate went to Shelemiah, Meshelemiah, and Zechariah his son, a wise counselor, had the north gate. Obed-Edom was given the south gate, and his sons were assigned to the storehouse. Shuppim and Hosa had the west gate and the Shalaketh gate on the upper road. These guards were not ordinary security. They stood watch at sacred thresholds, ready every morning and evening, keeping the sanctuary holy. Next came the treasurers, those who were in charge of the storehouses of the temple and the gifts dedicated by the kings and leaders. From the family of Ladan, descended from Gershon, came Jehieli, and his sons Zetham and Joel were appointed over the treasuries. From the Amramites, Izharites, Hebronites, and Uzzielites, the Levites were appointed for administrative work, court duties, and the overseeing of sacred treasures. Shelemith, from the family of Izhar, was in charge of everything dedicated by King David, the chiefs of families, commanders, and army officials. From the Hebronites, a man named Jerijah was chief. In the 40th year of David's reign, a genealogical search found these men to be capable leaders in the territory of Gilead, and they were appointed to oversee Israel west of the Jordan in matters of worship, justice, and temple care. This chapter organizes the military and administrative structure of David's kingdom. First, the record of the 12 divisions of warriors, each serving 1 month per year. Each division had 24,000 men. The first division, for the first month, was led by Jashobeam, son of Zabdiel, a descendant of Perez. The second month division was under Dodai the Ahohite. The third month was commanded by Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and the fourth by Asahel, the brother of Joab, then his son Zebediah after him. The fifth month was under Shamhuth the Izrahite, the sixth under Ira son of Ikesh, the seventh under Helez the Pelonite, the eighth under Sibbecai the Hushathite, the ninth under Abiezer the Anathothite, the 10th under Maharai the Netophathite, the 11th under Benaiah of Pirathon, and the 12th under Heldai from Othniel's family. Next are the tribal leaders. Over Reuben, Eleazar son of Zikri. Over Simeon, Shephatiah son of Makkah. Over Levi, Hashabiah. Over Aaron, Zadok. Over Judah, Elihu, a brother of David. Over Issachar, Omri. Over Zebulun, Ishmaiah. Over Naphtali, Jeremoth. Over Ephraim, Hoshea. Over Manasseh, west, Joel. Over Manasseh, east, Iddo. Over Benjamin, Jasiel. And over Dan, Azarel. David did not count everyone under 20 years old because the Lord had promised to make Israel as numerous as the stars in the sky. Joab, son of Zeruiah, began to count the people, but did not finish because God's wrath came upon Israel, and the number was not recorded in David's official records. Asmaveth was in charge of the royal storehouses, and Jonathan, son of Uzziah, was over the storehouses in the country. Ezri was in charge of the field workers. Shimei oversaw the vineyards. Zabdi managed the produce from the vineyards for the wine vats. Baal-Hanan was over the olive groves. Joash oversaw the oil supplies. Shitrai managed cattle in the plains of Sharon. Shaphat watched over the herds in the valleys. Obal the Ishmaelite was in charge of the camels. Jediah handled the donkeys. Jaziz the Hagrite watched the flocks. All these were overseers of King David's property. David's uncle Jonathan was a wise counselor and a scribe. Jehiel, son of Hakmoni, tutored the king's sons. Ahithophel was the king's counselor. Hushai the Archite was the king's friend. After Ahithophel came Jehoiada, son of Benaiah, and Abiathar the priest. Joab was commander of the army. David knew his time as king was nearing its end. With deep care and spiritual purpose, he gathered all the officials of Israel, every leader from every corner of the kingdom. He summoned the commanders of the tribes, the officers of the army, the officials in charge of the king's property and livestock, the palace officials, the mighty warriors, and every brave fighting man. Once everyone was assembled, King David stood to his feet before the entire assembly. Though aged and physically weakened, his voice rang with purpose. He said, "Listen to me, my brothers and my people. I had it in my heart to build a house as a place of rest for the ark of the covenant of the Lord, a footstool for our God. I made preparations to build it. But God said to me, You are not to build a house for my name, because you are a warrior and have shed much blood. David was transparent about God's decision. Though it was his desire to build the temple, it was not God's will for him to do so. Yet David did not complain. Instead, he gave glory to God, saying, The Lord, the God of Israel, chose me from my whole family to be king over Israel forever. He chose Judah to lead, and from Judah the family of my father. From among my father's sons, he was pleased to make me king over all Israel. David then looked at his many sons, saying, Of all my sons, and the Lord has given me many, he has chosen my son Solomon to sit on the throne of the kingdom of the Lord over Israel. This was not a political decision. It was divine appointment. He continued, God said to me, Solomon, your son is the one who will build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father. I will establish his kingdom forever, if he remains strong to obey my commands and laws as he is doing now. Turning to the assembly, David charged them with responsibility. Now I say to you in the sight of all Israel and in the hearing of our God, be careful to follow all the commands of the Lord your God, so that you may possess this good land and pass it on as an inheritance to your descendants forever. Then David looked to Solomon, his son, and spoke directly to him with a father's weight and a prophet's clarity. And you, my son Solomon, acknowledge the God of your father, and serve him with wholehearted devotion and a willing mind, for the Lord searches every heart and understands every desire and every thought. If you seek him, he will be found by you, but if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. He continued, Consider now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house as the sanctuary. Be strong and do the work. Then, like a father handing over the blueprint of his dream, David gave Solomon the plans for the temple, plans given by the Spirit of God. These included the portico, buildings, storerooms, upper rooms, inner rooms, and the most holy place. He gave him detailed instructions for the divisions of the priests and Levites, for all the work of service in the house of the Lord, and for the articles used in worship. David handed over the specifications for the gold items, the weight of gold for each piece of service, lamps, tables, bowls, cups, altars, and the chariot, the cherubim of gold that spread their wings and covered the ark of the covenant. David told Solomon, All this I have in writing as a result of the Lord's hand upon me, and he gave me understanding in all the details of the plan. Then once more, he encouraged his son with firm and heartfelt words. Be strong and courageous, do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God my God is with you. He will not fail you or forsake you until all the work for the service of the temple of the Lord is finished. He reminded Solomon that the divisions of priests and Levites were ready to assist, and every skilled person was available to help in the work. The officials and all the people would fully support him in this great task. David now turned to the whole assembly of Israel, officials, leaders, elders, and the people themselves, with one final call to devotion. Standing before them as both king and servant, he spoke from a heart full of vision and humility. He said, My son Solomon, whom God has clearly chosen, is young and inexperienced. The task before him is great, because this palace is not for man, it is for the Lord God. David reminded the people that the temple was no ordinary building. It would be the place where heaven touched earth, where God's presence would dwell among them. He continued, "With all my resources I have provided for the temple of my God, gold for gold work, silver for silver, bronze for bronze, iron for iron, wood for wood, as well as onyx, precious stones, and all kinds of fine marble in abundance." But David didn't stop there. From his own personal treasure, he gave more. "I now give my own gold and silver to the temple of my God, 3,000 talents of gold, gold of Ophir, and 7,000 talents of refined silver, for the overlaying of the walls, and for every kind of work to be done by the craftsmen." Then he turned the moment toward the nation. "Now, who is willing to consecrate themselves to the Lord today?" The response was overwhelming. The leaders of families, the officers of the tribes, the commanders of thousands and hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work, they all gave willingly. They gave 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. Anyone who had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the temple, placing them into the care of Jehiel the Gershonite. The people rejoiced greatly at the generosity of the leaders. Their hearts were in it. They had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. Even King David was filled with joy. Then David did what he had done so many times before. He lifted his voice in a prayer of praise before all the assembly. He said, "Blessed are you, O Lord, the God of our father Israel, forever and ever. Yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor, for everything in heaven and earth is yours." He continued, "Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all." David then declared, "Now, our God, we give you thanks and we praise your glorious name." But then David's tone softened into humility. "But who am I, and who are my people, that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are foreigners and strangers in your sight, as were all our ancestors. Our days on earth are like a shadow, without hope, unless you are with us." He continued in prayer, "Lord our God, all this abundance we have provided for building. You, a temple for your holy name, comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you." David then prayed for the hearts of the people. "I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. All these things I have given willingly and with honest intent. And now I have seen with joy how willingly your people who are here have given to you." He ended his prayer with this heartfelt request: "Lord, the God of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, keep these desires and thoughts in the hearts of your people forever, and keep their hearts loyal to you, and give my son Solomon the wholehearted devotion to keep your commands, laws, and decrees, and to do everything to build the structure for which I have made provision." Then David said to the whole assembly, "Praise the Lord your God." So all the people praised the Lord, the God of their ancestors. They bowed down, prostrating themselves before the Lord and the king. The next day they offered sacrifices to the Lord in celebration. They presented 1,000 bulls, 1,000 rams, 1,000 lambs, together with drink offerings and many other sacrifices for all Israel. It was a joyful feast before the Lord that day. Then they anointed Solomon son of David as king a second time, and Zadok as priest. So Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king in place of his father David. He prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. All the officials and the mighty men and all the sons of King David pledged their allegiance to King Solomon. The Lord highly exalted Solomon in the sight of all Israel and gave him royal splendor greater than any king in Israel before him. David son of Jesse reigned over all Israel. He reigned for 40 years, 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. He died at a good old age, full of riches, honor, and years, and his son Solomon succeeded him as king. The events of King David's reign, from beginning to end, are recorded in the writings of Samuel the seer, Nathan the prophet, and Gad the seer. These records include all of his reign, his mighty deeds, and the events that happened to him, to Israel, and to the kingdoms of the surrounding lands. This is the end. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps share God's Word with more people. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on powerful biblical teachings. Thanks for watching, and until next time, God bless you.